Hello everyone, welcome to Scorched-Earth-Toys-at-Anymoon.com's review of Bandai's DX VF-31JKai Hayate Immelmann Custom. This toy was released at the 10th anniversary Tamashii Nations event in December 2017 for 21,000 yen. It comes in a brown shipper box. Inside that brown shipper you'll find a nice sleeve. Beneath that sleeve, you'll find the more standard DX VF-31 box. This one is most easily differentiated from the original release by the giant reaction missiles on the forearms of the toy. When you open the box, you'll find that lid that you've become accustomed to. That lid this time now has sort of the Pegasus unicorn emblem on top. I don't know what you want to call that. Once you remove that, you'll find the toy itself, and again, there's a nice cover on all the optional accessories within. You get 6 sets of fixed posed hands, 2 sets of daggers, 1 pilot figure, 2 sets of reaction missile hardpoint mounts, and another 2 sets of reaction missile mounts for use with the super parts. Now, if you're checking against your original VF-31J release, you no longer get a Ronka figure, and you no longer get the multi-drones in the flying or projecting positions. When you remove the styrofoam tray that includes the toy, you'll find the display stand underneath, which includes the 3 display stand adapters, the base for the display stand, and the arm. And now you also get 2 sets of reaction missiles. And below that clamshell, you'll find the instructions. This isn't my first DX VF-31 review. If you haven't seen the other ones though, little Cliff Notes run through of the toy in fighter mode is in order. It does have an opening canopy. That canopy is pretty heavily frosted, so it's really difficult to see the pretty decent pilot figure inside. Again, removable pilot figure from the accessories. There is a co-pilot seat in the back. We could just lift this top off and flip out a seat. Since this particular version doesn't come with a co-pilot, I'm not going to really belabor that too much. You do have removable intake fan covers on the bottom. I'll just kind of pull that out. The detail could be a little bit better, but it's a nice feature nonetheless. There are integrated landing gear with an articulated front tow bar and rubber wheels that spin. I'm not a huge fan of the design of the kneecap rear landing gear. Those wheels don't really spin as much because they tend to run into the kneecap. It's probably more of an issue from Kawamari than it is from Bandai. My little pet peeve for this toy, although this one is in particular so stiff out of the box, it's not a big deal. The canards don't really lock into position. It's very easy to get them realigned. Same thing with the vertical stabilizers. There's a neat gimmick on the back of the leg here. If you've seen Macross Delta, you'll remember there are these little multi-drones. This toy has multi-drones stored in the rear compartment, like so. You can open them that way. You also have the ability to bring this forward. Let's see if we can do it. I'm going to pitch it. There it goes. You can just slide forward and open that way as well. And there you see the little multi-drone detail within. Speaking of detail, this toy comes with tons of painted on detail. And the big difference here is this emblem right in the back. That's what separates this from the earlier VF-31J release, as well as the black trim. And I'll show you a little contrast in just a moment. You'll also note, as with all VF-31 toys, tons of beautiful painted on detail. While we're looking at the bottom, the toy does have a gimmick where you can pull the gun up a little bit and pull it down a little in the front and get clearance to make it look like it could fire. So that's pretty cool too. And again, lots of painted on detail up around the front. You can't grab this toy by the nose in fighter mode. It's not quite stiff enough through here. So you'll learn quickly to handle it differently, so that won't be an issue. Now, here is the earlier VF-31J release. So you can see there's the black trim, there's the big emblem in the back. Those are the big difference. Structurally, no changes between the two. All other differences are just accessory based. So let's talk about those accessories. The big deal here is the included reaction missiles. You can separate them, which is pretty cool for diorama purposes. And they have a pretty unobtrusive way of connecting back to each other. The connection point has a rounded section that's going to go towards the top. As you fish out this little hardpoint connector, oops, got that upside down, Let's figure this out. All right, so we're gonna put that in like so. And there you are. And now we're just gonna take the toy, we're gonna flip it upside down, pick a hard point, apply a little pressure, and that will lock in nice and firmly. Now, kind of part of the brilliance of the reaction missile attachment, but also something that might irritate you a little bit as you handle it. There is a rotation point. Now, that was a round connector we just used. So as you handle the toy, those can pivot. We'll take our other ones, we will plug them in as well, left-handed. So here you can see I've got my hard point got twisted on me. So now I'm going to connect it, and it connects very firmly. Looks good on the toy like so. And there you go, that's your big difference. Obviously those reaction missiles with those connectors could be attached to any previous DX VF-31 toy. And if you have super parts, we have a different connector piece. Let's take a look at that. So here's the toy with the super parts installed. And now while it might not be exactly the same tone of blue that the original VF-31J release is, it is certainly close enough where the original 31J super parts are gonna look just fine on the toy. Now I've got the reaction missiles on one side of the toy right now. To install those reaction missiles, you get these plates that go on the forearms in Batroid and Garwalk mode. In fighter mode, they're tucked up underneath on the hard points, as you can see there. This was the other clip that you received with your Kai version of the toy, and it just goes on like so. You can see it kind of reaches around on either side, and you can certainly have this attached to the toy when you do that. And then the circular peg to install, just gonna put that in like that, and then you pop it on underneath the hard point. So let's go ahead and do that now. And okay, so I don't think I've latched that in entirely, but it's certainly close enough where you get the look of it. And so there you go, very impressive that you got the parts now to install it if you want to use it with the fast packs or without. Let's go ahead and check out Garwalk mode. Okay, here we have Garwalk mode, and I've put the toy on the display stand. You can see the display stand does wobble quite a bit. There's no point of articulation at the base, no point of articulation where it connects either Garwalk Fighter or Batroid mode. It really just serves to elevate the toy and then keep it steady in that elevated position. And it's doing its purpose now, so that's good enough for me. One cool thing, I did transform this toy entirely to Garwalk mode without removing the reaction missiles. They just spun around in their place and they look great, so that is really cool. If you're not familiar with this toy in Garwalk mode, it does have these weapon pods on top. Now I just removed the gun, which came off a little easily, so I didn't have it attached entirely on there in the first place. It does peg into place, it pops off, and then it can go in the toy's hand. Now the big weakness of this toy, in my opinion, is that the trigger finger is not articulated. So let's go ahead, we're gonna remove this hand. It's just a ball joint. You can see these fingers here are articulated, but the trigger finger is not. The toy does a very poor job holding the gun with these integrated articulated hands. It's much better to pop them off and put on a gun gripping hand if you are going to put the gun on the toy. The gun grip does just kind of fish through the hand. It's very stiff when you first do this. It feels like you're gonna break something. Be careful, it's thin plastic, going through a kind of a very tight connection. Once you get it on there, it'll look like this. The reaction missiles do increase the difficulty of this operation just a little bit, but not too much where it's not workable. Also, while we're here, let's go ahead and flip that over, and I can show you that you can install the dagger. Oops, don't let it open up on you. But there's a little peg on there. It's just gonna fit in there underneath, and then you can close that back up. So we've got our dagger in place, and the cool thing there is that dagger can stay there forever pretty much. It doesn't impede transformation at all. We can take our gun now, get that ball joint out, pop it into place, and now we can have the gun also on the hand with the reaction missiles on there. So that's pretty cool. This whole top thing pivots, independently pivots. You can choose how high and back you want this. There is occasionally a little gap that shows up behind the canopy, which is a negative aspect. Sometimes there's a little gap at the head too. So those are things you just have to kind of push them together. But there's also paint durability issues. This is all painted, so you can definitely wear paint off. So as you transform the toy, be cognizant of what is potentially rubbing together as you go through it. And definitely check out my transformation guides. I try to hint to you where you might have some clearance issues and should be a little more careful. All right, let's throw the super parts on and take a look there. All right, so I've put fast packs on the toy and I've taken it off the display stand. As you can see, it stands super stable. Those reaction missiles, there's that clip that goes on and around the armor on the forearm. Again, they can rotate, so during handling, you might accidentally bump them and have to reposition them. You can see I've swung the guns out. Nothing's interfering with their usage. I put the gun on top of the toy. Everything's still fine up here. Everything's really, really good. As far as this toy goes in gear walk mode, it handles the mode very well because of a few points of articulation. There is a pivot behind the leg here that lets you swing the leg way out. Now mine's really stiff, but you could bring the leg out. There's an extension in the leg, which lets it get further down and then swings forward. Now you do have to, when you have the fast packs on, you have this piece that comes down and you have the kneecap that kind of run into each other. But look how much clearance. You still have the ability to come all the way forward like that. There's also that pivot within the knee. And then coming down, the ankles are very impressive. They ratchet. You have this little anklet that gets out of the way and then this little piece here on the fast packs. But you can come way back, and then you have the ability to rock forward and back and twist. So everything's very stiff, but your range of articulation is huge. And what that makes for is a very dynamic and simultaneously sturdy gear walk mode. Now I do have, there's the gap I mentioned before forming kind of in the front here. So just applying a little bit of pressure to try to get that all back together. Occasionally the hip armors are going to pop off on you when using the fast packs, and maybe even those intakes below the armors might pop free. But for the most part, this toy is a joy to behold in gear walk mode. It has all the joints you need to have a lot of fun with it. And here you can see the fast packs with those reaction missiles just adding to that imposing look, making for a great display piece that's also fun to handle. For those of you unfamiliar with the DX VF-31 toy, here is a picture of the Messer 31 toy in Batroid mode. You can see it's 25.5 centimeters tall, and the toy we're looking at today, obviously just a repaint of that. And you can see how that will scale with your other 160 toys. If we look at fighter mode, here is the DX-31J for the original release with a couple of Frontier Valks, also all 160 scale, almost exactly. So that's what you're looking at, and that's how it's going to fit with your existing collections. Okay, so again, the toy does not come with super parts. You would have to track them down separately. But this is what the toy looks like with the super parts on. And really, it's about those reaction missiles on the forearm there. It does make for a great display piece. While they do pivot, they kind of hold their place well enough for most purposes, and you'll learn where to put your fingers to not keep them twisting around constantly. So there you go. Forearms, reaction missiles, looking sharp and adding to that display in a positive way. And here's how the toy stacks up against the original release. Again, this one that I'm touching now is the new version. This is the original release. The black obviously being the big difference here, that black trim that goes throughout. And as we spin the toy around, you can see the black trim on the wings there. Obviously, this toy in Batroid mode, a lot of back kibble, but it has ratcheting hips that help support all that weight. There's the back angle. So, you know, very attractive toy in Batroid mode. Definitely different from that first release. Some people are going to prefer it, other people will prefer the original release, and that's okay. So now if you're not super familiar with the DX VF-31. I'll go through articulation fairly quickly here. As we've seen, these pods move independently of each other, and you can remove that gun and put it in the hand right now. You do have shoulders below that. The shoulders can swivel around. Excellent range of motion there. You got to just get your hands free there. And then you have that pivot up and down as well, so that's pretty cool. There's a joint right underneath the shoulder where you can bring the arm out and away. There is a twist, and there is the ability to get the elbow quite a bit up, so a little bit more than 90 degrees. And there you go. So that's as far as the elbow goes, which is a pretty good range of motion. You saw the hands are a ball joint. They spin around, the articulated hands, everything but the finger. And you do have the gun that you can swing around if you're not going to use that big gun on top, which is pretty cool. There is a waist joint, which has a pretty good range of motion. There are, again, the legs going way back, way forward with a ratchet involved. And then obviously that gear walk joint we used earlier. And you've got your twist right below. And then again, the twist down at the knee. So good things there. And then we've already gone over the foot for the most part. So really, you can have a ton of fun getting this toy into the pose that you really want. And everything is certainly out of the box. It's super stiff, so it's going to hold that position really well. And you won't have to worry too much about that back kibble making the toy fall over. Now, my original release VF-31 is getting a little bit looser, but still it's not falling over. In fact, it's actually becoming a little bit easier to handle with that looseness. Now again, we have the reaction missiles. That's the big difference here besides the paint that we can go ahead and throw on. And it will look, again, still looking great. So let's swing this around. Now we have the reaction missiles. We've got the guns forward, and this thing looks amazing. So high marks here. I highly recommend this DX VF-31 as well as all of the other ones. Now this one was pretty tough to come by, right? It's an event exclusive VF-31. There is going to be a lottery that you should be signing up for now if you want one of these. Bandai is going to pick certain people who select this toy and reward them with it. So there is no real saying how many people are going to get it. That hasn't been announced. So you should try. And the thought is after that lottery, there should be more available. It's probably never going to be as cheap as a regular release, DX VF-31. And then certainly after release, it's only going to get more expensive. So be on the lookout for that. It should hit shelves, so to speak, in April, and the winners of the lottery will be informed in February. That's it. Again, highly recommended. Check out anymoon.com for my full article and my transformation guide. And as always, thanks for watching.